presentation, I'll be talking about our experiences at NFFC. So I hope my presentation would help you in Bangladesh in advancing your fisheries industry. So first, this is the organizational chart of NFFC. In Korea, we have about 150,000 fishermen, and they make contributions to NFFC to their district cooperatives. So there are 2 fisheries processing members and 19 fishing members and 70 local members. And with their contribution, we are operating the NFFC. And out of the local members, that is like 70 local members, we have 2,000 fishing villages. And for the fishing villages, we have the fishing village is the locally operated autonomous organization that is working for the benefits of the fishing community. And currently we have about 7.7 thousand employees working at NFFC. This is the history of NFFC. So the first, it was created in Gyeongnam area in 1960s, and through various development, we had various changes, and the name NFFC was created in 1976. And in 1963, we started to do the lending and loan business. And also in 1970, we started to provide supply to the military units. And in 1990s, we started to provide the insurance service. Then in 2000, we acquired the largest fish market in Seoul, the Noryangjin market. And after that, we constructed big fisheries complex. So if you look at the past 60 years, we contributed and made a lot of efforts for the development of the fisheries. So if you look at the volume of fish production, it was just 470, but in 1990s, it went up to 3,000. And as for the turnover, it was just about 18 million, but it went up to 400 million. And as for the turnover of the members, that was just 4,900 million won, but then went up by big as well. So if you look at our support to the local community, we do the consignment sales and mutual trust and supply of foreign crew and supply to the military unit. And we also support the freezing and processing facilities. Well, due to time constraint, I will not go over all of them, but just focus on core missions of NSFS. What we do is actually one of the core areas that we focus on is to create this Fisheries Fund. It is to provide the low interest loan to the fishermen so that they can have stable operation. Until 1970s, our fishermen had difficulties in financing. So many fishermen had to get the private loan which was very high in interest rate. So with the cooperation with the government, we started to support this fisheries fund so that fishermen can get the fund in very low rate. So currently we have 1.2 trillion won of the fisheries funds extended, and this can be renewed every year. So this is very important for the smooth operation of fishermen. And for the delinquent loan, we secure the vessels as collateral. And also on top of that, the government is supporting us to compensate for the difference in our low interest rate and the market rate. If you look at this graph, it shows how we finance the Fisheries Fund and how we support it to the fishermen. Next is the consignment market. We gather all the catch from small-sized fishermen and sell them through the consignment market so that they can have bigger negotiating power with dealers and reduce the distribution cost so that the income for the fishermen could be increased. And also that is helping consumers get the products at reasonable price. So we have consignment sales, purchase and sales, collection and sales, and pre-sales. Last year, there were total 211 consignment markets and 8 joint markets, and total of 1.1 million ton was sold last year. Next is the tax-free oil supply for fishing purpose. So we purchase low-priced oil for tax-free so that small-sized fishermen can get this low-priced oil, and that contributes to increase in the income of fishermen. That creates great balance in the national economy. And for the tax-exempt oil, only those who are operating their vessels in the inshore and offshore can get this oil, and it can also be supplied to the heating facilities used as dressing rooms and also the fish breeding facilities, fishermen-owned vessels carrying fish from the fishing ground, and freshwater and aquaculture facilities. Last year, we supplied total volume of 5.7 tons. And this is how we supply this tax-exempt oil. And at Suhyap, we are trying to discover overseas market for export. So we also do export business. As of 2020, we had the COVID situation, but still we had a lot of cooperation with overseas partners, both online and offline. We have enhanced our marketing strategies. So we sold to the US, China, Singapore, Thailand. So about 3.4 thousand tons were exported in total last year. And in 2014, to support the export in Shanghai of China, we have created our offshore hub there. And also in 2016, we created the office in Qingdao and continuously created our offices in the US and in Malaysia, Hong Kong as well. So in all corners of the world, we have export support centers working for our fishermen. Also, we supply our materials to the military units so that soldiers can get very good quality fish supplied for their meals. So this is done in collaboration between NFFC and 8 local district Suhyap. So we are supplying a big volume of fish to the military. And we also work with schools and other group meal centers to facilitate the consumption of fisheries. Last year in the cosmopolitan area, we supplied to the elementary school, secondary school, and hospitals, and that amounted to 30 billion won in turnover. We are also trying to stabilize the price of fisheries. This is in line with the government policy. So it is to maintain the right price for producers and to supply the fisheries to consumers in a stable way so that even during holidays like Thanksgiving and other major holidays, consumers can get the stable supply of fisheries they need. Also, for the storage and processing, well, that is very critical for the good supply of fresh and reliable products. So we have the freezing facility and storage facility and all the other infrastructure functions that we have invested in. In Cheonan, Busan, and Incheon, in all those major cities, we have our freezing facility and processing facility run by NFFC. In Incheon, we have the largest scale fisheries processing facility. So per year, we process about 10,000 ton of fisheries being processed every year. And the core focus of that center is to have fresh and reliable. And as of last year, the total volume processed by NFFC is 580,000 ton. Also, what we do at NFFC is to protect fishermen from international conflict or dispute and protect them from maritime accidents. To do so, in 1965, we created a radio station to broadcast about the safety information. And every year, we provide training to the fishermen and the vessel captains and crews regarding the government policy and regarding compliance and safety and major technical skills. Also, for the EEZ, we try to have the good control, so that job is consigned to us from the government. So according to the EEZ, we train the fishermen about where the EEZ border is, how they should comply with that. Also, for the safety of fishermen, we broadcast about the weather information, and we also prevent vessels from going into foreign territorial water. Also, in case some dangerous vessels are identified, if Korean fishermen report it to us, then we can have communication with the government to take proper action. Regarding the monitoring system, we have those monitoring systems installed on vessels so that when they are in danger, we can go there and rescue them. So for this slide, this is related to the safety measures. You can just refer to them later. Next is about insurance. So for fisheries, we are faced with a lot of dangers, including typhoon and other maritime accidents. So to cover for those accidents, we have this insurance. So for inevitable accidents, we have this cooperative insurance, and most of our members donate their money into this insurance so that if somebody is suffering from damage, then they can get the compensation. So if you look at what kind of insurance we have the fishing crew insurance and fish vessel insurance and aquaculture insurance. And we provide redemption for aquaculture farm in case of natural disaster so that they can have stable operation. For the aquaculture insurance, if there are like natural disaster like typhoon, etc., and they lose their aquaculture, then we compensate for that and help them get back to work. For the government-backed insurance of NFFC, as the name states, it is partially backed by the government. So for the fishing crew insurance, a certain part of the insurance is covered by the government subsidy. So you can see that we have various kinds of insurance in place so that the fishermen and aquaculture farms and crews can enjoy a stable life. Next is the mutual credit. we understand that most of the fishermen are economically vulnerable, and we have this mutual credit operated so that when they need the money, they can receive loans from the cooperative. At NFFC, we started this project in 1960s. So back then, most of the fishermen were even smaller in size, so they couldn't get the regular loan, but they had to resort to the private loans. And that led to them having even bigger economic difficulties. So that is why NFFC came up with this mutual credit plan. So it was led by the government. The government has enacted a law. So in 1974, we started to operate this mutual credit business. Since 1980s, related financial services were provided to the fishermen so that they would not go to the private loans with high rates. They can find this reliable source of loan and operate their business in very stable way. And also by using the mutual credit window, we also supply them with the government credit services. So as of last year, the number of branches we operate is 487. Total deposit amount was 29 trillion won. Total loan amount was 23 trillion won. Next is the Sushi Bank. As for the Sushi Bank, it is like a subsidiary of NFFC. At this bank, we support the fishermen and fisheries organizations with financial means so that they can have better economic and financial means. So we are like a specialized maritime bank, and our services are not just limited to the fishermen or fishing organizations, but also any Korean can come to us and get these financial services. We provide all the commercial financial services, including loans, deposits, credit cards, trust funds, and etc. And Financial Policy Fund, which is the fund that is provided from the government to the fishermen, is also channeled through this Suhyap Bank. And we also develop specific bank products that are designed for the fishing community. As of last year, we had 131 branches, and capital is 52 trillion won, and loan is 34 trillion won, and deposit is total 34 trillion won. This is about our broadcast station. At Suhyap, we gather coastal and maritime information that is needed for the fishing operation. And we create videos containing those information and provide them to the fishing community. Around the world at major consignment markets, we have large-size monitors and broadcast receivers. And on our website, anybody can access the website and get the information they need. Also, at NFFC, we work together with the leaders of the district Suhyap organizations. We hold workshops with leaders and representatives of the fishing organizations and heads of the member cooperatives to gather their opinions. And we hold seminars and we do inspections and research on the understanding level of the community regarding the government's maritime policies. And by listening to the fishing community, we identify what are the problems they have and take countermeasures on FTA. So fisheries is one of the main export industry of Korea. So in 1960s, Korea was one of the poorest countries. So back then, our major export item was fisheries. So out of the total export, back then, fisheries took up more than 50% of the export volume. So we can say that fisheries was like the catalyst to facilitate the economic growth of Korea. So in 1950s and 60s, the there was the export ministers meeting held among various countries. And back then, when it was a meeting about export, and if the officials from the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries could not attend, then they had to cancel the entire meeting because it was meaningless without having the people from the fisheries and oceans. But now we are seeing the depletion in the maritime resources. And since last year, we are seeing decrease in our maritime production. So to overcome this problem, the government is implementing various measures, including those campaigns that you can see on the slide. Next is the projects that we are doing to facilitate exchanges between the city and fishing villages. We are having the fast decrease in the number of population in the fishing village. So we want to attract more people to the fishing villages. And that is why we are doing this exchange program between cities and fishing villages. We have the sisterhood relationship signed between one village, one fishing village, and one major city. And by doing so, the fishing village can supply good quality fisheries products to the city, and the cities will visit the community and they will generate more revenue for the fishing village. Also, many fishermen are having difficulties in finding manpower. And to overcome that problem, we are finding some foreign workers to resolve that manpower shortage problem. However, we understand that those foreign workers have difficulties in settling in Korea, so we run some centers to support them get settled in Korea. In Korea, currently we have people from Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Timor-Leste, about 16,000 foreign workers working in the fishing industry of Korea. So, as you can understand, NFFC is playing various roles to protect fishermen's rights and to enhance the fishing industry of Korea and then contribute to the national economy. Still, there could be some blind sides that we do not understand. So that is why in 2006 we created the NFFC Foundation. So by operating this foundation, we provide scholarship for fishermen's children, and we run medical centers so that the fishermen can get medical services easily at lower cost. And we also run the elderly center. This year we have COVID situation, so we are not operating some services properly, but we will do better services next year. And since next year, we will start to provide the air sterilizer machine to those centers. Also, we work together with ICFO. We are in charge of one of the sectoral meetings of ICA, and every year we select two students to get the undergraduate master's course education in one of major universities of Korea. And Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Turkey, they have sent their students to Korea to get the education. Before COVID situation, we had people, the officials from the fisheries industry of developing countries to share our experience and knowledge to them. At NFFC last year, in 2010, we had we have provided 5 computers to one of small cities of Bangladesh in 2010. At NFFC, we unfold various activities. And by doing so, we want to achieve these three goals of creating good fishing village, supporting the fisheries industry, and having the good life for the fishermen. At NFFC, we do many activities, and the last word I want to give you is that those activities can be categorized into these three fields. So first is the guidance or extension service to the fishing village, and next is the economy-related activities like the running of the consignment market, and the last one is the financial services that includes the banks and mutual fund operation. So those are like the three pillars of NFFC. Those three pillars are very important because like 10 years ago in Japan, they had the tsunami, and the fishing villages of Japan were struck hard by a tsunami. But Japan's fisheries cooperative, they didn't have the financial service. They just had the economic and community related activities. So they didn't have sufficient financing or funds to overcome that crisis. So that is why it is very important to have all these three factors. So when you think of your future structure of the fisheries cooperative, you have to find the stable source of fund. So that is why it is very important to have this financial pillar. So that is why we have this economic factor and guidance factor and the financial services factor as three major pillars of our NFFC operation. Thank you all for listening. And to help you better understand my presentation, I have prepared a 7-minute video clip.
We always worry about how the Korean fisheries industry will change in the future. Suhyup is here for you. With a heart as deep as the ocean, we have earned the trust of the Korean people. Connecting fishermen, people, and the world. Going beyond the Korean fisheries industry, we are boldly marching forward into the world. Suhyup is here to guide the future of the Korean fisheries industry. Suhyup. Even in rough waters, opportunity and hope can be found. We are paving the way for fisheries to experience an economic boom. Suhyup began its first voyage with hope and direction for fishermen. Now we are a reliable force for the development of Korea's fisheries. As a reliable center for fishing villages and fishermen, we add to the public value of fisheries and sustainable development of fishing villages. We are Korea's foremost cooperative for innovative business. With member cooperatives nationwide and taking on new challenges beyond the Korean peninsula, we are seeking a wider path for tomorrow's fishing villages and fisheries. Dreaming of an ocean of success, paving the way for first-class fisheries. This is Suhyup's education initiative. Discovering and rewarding local leaders to increase the morale and pride of fishing communities. And offering professional legal support and strong financial support to increase fishing expertise. We also provide management and leadership training to cultivate technical fishery education and to foster local leadership. Through these ways, we are supporting our fishermen. Through Suhyup's system, human resources and management capabilities are proactively guided and supported for the sustainable growth and development of our member cooperatives. Our City Fishing Village Exchange project aims to build a sisterhood relationship between businesses and fishing villages, activating fishing village tourism and bolstering income for fishing communities, along with addressing manpower shortages at fisheries and in the fishing industry. Suhyup also operates a fishing vessel safety business and safety training to prevent fishing accidents and injuries, helping to support the safe operation and rescue of fishing vessels in distress off the coast. Suhyup's highest priority is our commitment to the safety of people in the fishing business. Suhyup also works to protect the marine environment and resources and to maintain clean water by taking a stand against damaging activities such as the collection of sand and construction of offshore wind power plants. The Sea of Hope movement continues. Even in a rapidly changing international environment, as we work to make fishing communities even better places to work and live. Taking the dreams and passions of the oceans of today and adding business to create waves of innovation. Fishermen are committed to ensuring production in a stable environment, and Suhyup is dedicated to purchasing, processing, and selling, thereby creating fishing communities where people enjoy better lives. Usage processing business that is responsible for the distribution and processing of fresh seafood. Fisheries consignment, helping to secure a stable supply in markets for marine products, supporting marine product pricing. Supplying tax-exempt fuel for fishing, and supplying fishery equipment and materials. As we engage in these projects, which form the foundation for fishing businesses, we are here for you. With new distribution systems such as Suhyup Shopping, Home Shopping, and other distribution channels. Suhyup's distribution structure satisfies the needs of both producers and consumers at the same time. In particular, the Noryeongjin Fisheries Market, one of the most well-known fishery product distributors, sets the standards for reasonable and fair seafood prices as a globally competitive central wholesale market. By supplying quality marine products to soldiers and students, we protect the health of the nation while contributing to the economies of fishing communities. Creating safe, value-added seafood products in a wider variety, we are promoting new seafood research and development. We are forming a marine Hallyu Korean wave with 10 trade centers in 7 countries and going beyond the domestic fishing economy to create even more avenues for Korea's future. A Sea of Hope, dreaming of prosperous fishing villages that work hand in hand with financial insurance businesses. Suhyup Mutual Credit and its variety of financial services provide the funding necessary for educational and economic projects, forming a strong support system for the fishing economy. Suhyup Cooperative Insurance is for everyone. Our life and damage insurance can be used by both members and customers. Ours is a cooperative insurance system that supports the stable livelihoods of the people. Fishermen and fishing boat accident compensation insurance. Aquatic and marine product accident insurance. Fishermen safety insurance, and more. We offer insurance policies made especially for professionals in the fisheries industry and protect them from damages caused by natural disasters and accidents. Suhyup Bank is becoming a global leader, creating new services for customers through its mobile innovation. Leading the way in healthy finances and strong deductibles, and creating a transparent financial culture. We are creating a happier future where everyone's needs are met. In order to achieve the dream of becoming a fisheries powerhouse and always protecting the precious seas. With a spirit of cooperation that empowers all, we are Suhyup, embracing society and connecting the world. Suhyup's new wave is now growing larger, and we boldly move beyond Korea and into the world. High-capable Suhyup, highly profitable fisheries.
Hi, I'm Joseph Zhou, and I also have our advisor to FIPA, Jahun Ku. So we'll be presenting our slides. And I am very pleased to meet you, even though unfortunately you have to meet on a virtual basis, but hopefully you can meet face to face in the near future. So the slides are divided into two parts. So in part one, I'll be covering the general information and the area of businesses we cover in FIPA. And in part two, Mr. Ku will be covering more focus in the ICT portion and also be presenting about a project we've conducted in Bangladesh. So FIPA, who are we? The name is a brief form of Korea Fisheries Infrastructure Public Agency, and we are a subsidiary of the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries in Korea. So we were incorporated in 1987, and we have something more than 30 plus years of industry experience. And we started as an NGO back then, but in 2007, we transformed to a government agency. And now we have around 350 employees and a headquarters in Seoul and 27 branches nationwide. And for last year, the annual budget for 2020 was around $600 million. And as our company is growing rapidly, and for 2021, our annual budget reached over $700 million, and I expect it to grow faster in the future. Okay, so objectives and initiatives. So like I said, we started as an NGO back in the 80s, and in 2007, the Congress passed a bill called Fishing Villages and Fisheries Harbors Act. So based on that ground, that the law states all the objectives and businesses we can do and what we need to do. So the objectives are developing fishing villages and fishing ports. Number two, preserve fishing grounds. And lastly, promoting tourism in fishing villages. And our key businesses are conducting research of fishing villages, fishing ports, fishing grounds, developing technologies, conduct training, run maintenance, safety checks on fishing ports, promoting local tourism, and lastly, encouraging international cooperation with foreign governments or international organizations and NGOs like yourselves. So there's the company vision and core values. So I would say, in short, we are a government agency to help and to improve the livelihoods of the public, especially in the fishing villages. And there is the org chart. So we have the CEO and the teams. And like I said, we are headquartered in Seoul, and we have three major big branches covering all the coast, the three coasts in Korea, and 27 other small branches covering the small regions. So now I'll jump to the business side. So I divided into three parts. So number one is I named it reinforcing the rural area. Number two is port maintenance. Number three, sustainable fishing. So in the first part, I'll be talking about how we improve the fishing villages. And number two is more about safety checkups, how we maintain the fishing port safe and sound. And lastly, sustainable fishing is about the environment part, that how we keep the fishing industry sustainable. So number one would be reinforcing the rural. New Deal 300 project. So as you can see, obviously it's about 300 fishing sites. So we are covering 300 sites, and we put $10 million each. So in total, it's a $3 billion mega size project. So so I would say in a nutshell, we take a holistic approach on how to improve the living standards of the people in the fishing village, both in terms of hardware and software. And in terms of hardware, mostly it's about construction. So we would go make buildings, build warehouses or parks, lighthouse, basically whatever the fishermen or the people in the fishing village need. And in the software side is more of a capacity building. So we would conduct trainings to the people, the villagers, and ultimately to lead. Hopefully, it can lead to increasing their profit or income. So the project started in 2019 with a small group of 34 villages. And in 2020, we started another 55, in 2021, 25. So in total, we reached the number of slightly over 100. So we finished about 1/3 of the whole villages. And I expect this to be continued for another 3-4 years. And so now I want to talk about how this is processed. So it's more of I would say, a bottom-up approach. So it's not that government picks certain village. It's more of a coming from the ground. So the village representatives will file an application, and in that application, they say what they need or why they need this project, why they need this fund, and how they're gonna do the business, the future plans, etc. And once submitted, the Ministry of Ministry of Fisheries, Oceans and Fisheries, go on they do the review and go for a due diligence and pick those 300 sites. And now, like I said, we have done about 1/3 the whole sites. And in the next slide, there you can see the green boxes. Those are the sites we started in 2019. And the blue boxes we have started in 2020. And of course, the numbers will increase. And next slide. So this is about promoting tourism and diversifying livelihood. So this is, I would say, it's similar to the New Deal 300 project, but this is more focusing on promoting tourism side. So it will be, rather than hardware, it's more on the software side. So it was successful before. So it started, let's say, for example, in 2019, we had like 1.5, almost 2 million tourists in the fishing villages. And back then it was even more, but in 2020, it dropped to half, like 80.8 million. And 2021, it got even worse. So now, like currently, we are more focusing on sanitation or how to get out of the COVID. But the initial plan is that how to bring people to the villages and enjoy themselves. So how do we do the capacity building? Let's say, for example, we do promotions on TV or social media, YouTube, and we open exhibitions so people can come and see how beautiful the fishing villages are. And we also visit schools and show the kids that how fun they can have. They can catch fishes and have fun in the mud, in the fishing villages. So we try to promote all the people, not considering the age or sex, but all of the people can actually come to the fishing villages. And in the first box, there says we have sea commentators. So let me explain a little bit more of that. So it's more of a tour guide. So we have our tour guides, about 250 to 300 tour guides. So these are people who actually help the tourists on site. So whenever they have a tourist, they would greet them and give them souvenirs, and maybe also explain about the history of the village, etc. So they would make the tourists more enjoyable. So that is the sea commentators. And on the fourth box, we also run a website. So on that website, not only people can see the information of what they can do once they visit the sites. You can also make reservations and make payments as well. So it makes easier for people to actually come visit the villages. So that's how we promote tourism. And next is promoting recreational fishing. So this is part of the tourism section, but more focusing on fishing and safety side. So of course, you have lots of recreational fishers. They will come to the villages, and before they come, we would conduct trainings on how to do fishing safely, and also for the boat owners on how to drive their boats safely. So for 2020, we had around 7,200 people who finished their training. So next is we have fishing village development. So this is also similar to the UDO 300 project, but more it's a mini site, like a mini version of the project. So we have like 18 sites. We had 18 sites in 2020, and this is more focusing on the hardware side. So we would visit the fishing sites and can make buildings or bridges, warehouses, and etc. Whatever they need, whatever the people in the village would need. So that part is that. And next is promoting fishing village life. So like other countries as well, we have a problem that the people in the rural area, not only farms, but also in the fishing villages, are decreasing as time goes by. So I'll give you a perfect example of how we conduct this program. So let's say a typical example will be we have let's say a 50, 60-year-old person, and this person maybe is born in this fishing village and moved to the city when he was young for taking a job, and then wants to come back once he's retired. And in that stage, we come in. So even though this person wants to come back to his own old town, what he will be worried about his life, his job, and what to do. So we would provide training, such as we would teach this person how to run a business or any kind of skill sets that he would need to get a job in a fishing village, for example, as a fisherman. And maybe this person wants to buy a boat. then we also give out loans. Of course, the fund comes from the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, but we would come in as an agency that we would evaluate the application and see if this certain individual is eligible for the loan. And if it's okay, then this person can go get a loan and buy a boat and run his own business. And we also do a following up. So let's say after a year, we visit this person and see if he is using the loan as he said, like maybe buy a boat or run an aquaculture farm, whatever the business is. So those are the businesses we do for people to come back. Oh, sorry. And one more thing about the fishing doctor. So that is more of a, I would say, a mentor-mentee program. So for example, if we have a group of people who has come to the fishing village like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and we give them some small money and hire them as a mentor, and they would give training or just at least be friends of their mentees who want to or who are planning to come back or just go to the fishing villages. And we open workshops and we invite them to nice restaurants or any sort of that kind of stuff, and we make them to connect to each other and help the mentee to come back. Okay. So next part will be port maintenance. So in Korea, we have about 450 fishing ports nationwide, and FIPA covers about half of it. And we conduct regular checkups, and we call it precision checkups and emergency checkups. Regular checkup is we conduct it in once a year or twice a year, depending on the condition of the fishing port. And the precision or precise checkup is conducted in like once in 4 years or once in 6 years, also depending on the condition of the ports. So for the precise checkups, we would there's more check boxes on the list, so you have to go check on a more detailed basis. And emergency checkup, it's for example, whenever there is a disaster, a typhoon coming or have come, so something has been destroyed. If anything happens, then the local government will call us, and then we are there for the checkup to make sure the fishing ports are safe and sound. And this is the same subject, but I'd like to mention about the ICT part. So back in the days, we used to conduct the safety checks just on paper, but nowadays we don't do that anymore. It's all about IT and database, so we can keep all the records and plan more efficiently how to evaluate the fishing ports and see which is on a better condition and which is worse. So it made easier for us. And this is the research side. And so we would do the regular checkups, but also we'd like to develop our skill sets. So not only maintaining the database, but we would invite like people from more developed countries and open workshops and see how they are maintaining their fishing ports and try to learn from them. and make connections so we can do some research and development on support maintenance. So lastly, it's about sustainable fishing. The first subject is ocean cleanup. So FIFA owns 12 ships. As you can see in the picture, this ship, this monstrous customized ship, can collect all kind of ocean waste or sea debris, whatever is floating on the waters. And for example, in 2019, we were able to collect over 25,000 tons of sea waste. So, but despite of the effort, unfortunately, the ocean waste is just piling and piling over the years. So we are, as I understand, we are trying to increase the budget for this part. And continued slides. So like I said, we have 12 ships, but that is not enough for the cleanup. So we would hire external vendors to, well, basically do the same thing. Collecting sea waste, ocean debris, fishing nets, fishing gears, everything. And from that, we were able to collect around 2,500 tons in 2020. And also, we would conduct training programs to people, like you can see in the picture that you will visit schools or companies and we would talk about the environment and how we can lower the level of sea waste nationwide. So those are the programs we have. And next is eco-friendly fishing ground maintenance. So what happened in 2007, there was a massive oil spill in Korea. So there were two ships collided in the ocean, and it was massive. So we had to not only clean up the ocean, taking care of the oil spill, but we had to bring back the ecosystem as well. So this is an ongoing project for over 10 years. So those customized ships will go out and get rid of the oil. And secondly, the ecosystem part. You can see in the second picture that truck on the ship is throwing big rocks into the ocean. So how it works is, for example, sea cucumbers, they like when they hatch, they have to attach to these kind of certain huge rocks. So that's why once we throw the rocks into the ocean, the sea cucumber will come attach and grow. And then not only it brings back the ecosystem, but also the fishermen can later collect them and profit from it as well. Okay, lastly, it's about intelligent aquaculture, or so-called smart aquaculture. So I would say this is more of a consulting program, a one-stop consulting program. So for example, let's say a person wants to run the business. Maybe this person wants to open his own his or her aquaculture farm. But this person doesn't have any experience or knowledge. Then there's where we come in and we would give training on how to open this smart farm, and we also connect to the vendors and give trainings and also run mentor-mentee programs. And secondly, we also evaluate for loans. So if this certain person doesn't have sufficient fund, then we would give out loans and make sure this person can open his or her own aquaculture farm. And on a periodic basis, we will follow and go visit the farm and see if this aquaculture farm is running well, or maybe if this person doesn't have any problems or issues, and to make sure that the business is running well. So that will be all for my part, and I will pass to Mr. Koo for the second part 2.
Hello, my name is Jahan Koo. I'm a senior advisor to FIFA, and let me take you through the second part of the presentation, following up on Joseph's presentation. So, I think over the few days of the courses you've had, I think you've dealt with mostly the policies, the planning, the strategies, the monitoring and surveillance. And I think when we come to FIPA, we are more talking about the implementation of the project. So the actual implementation stage. And I just wanted to follow up on Joseph's presentation on how to use maybe ICTs in boosting fishing villages. And a lot of the overall view, I think Joseph gave through his first part of the presentation, and I'll probably go more deep into a project case that I've delivered. So just to mention about ICTs, you all know you use them every day. So basically, it's not the core part of the project, but it adds value to a lot of the projects that have been done, especially in the fisheries sector. And it also helps transform communities and economies. And I think this has been become more apparent during the recent COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of the villages, the communities, and all of ourselves have been isolated, and the ICT has played a large part. And I wanted to maybe focus a little bit on that to give you more ideas on the projects that you may be able to form in the future. Could we go to the next slides, please? So actually, this is a project that was done in Bangladesh. I think you would be aware of the island. It's the island of Moshkali. I'm sure you're very aware of the island. It's near Cox's Bazar. And actually, there was a project that was done in the island with the stakeholders all coming in. So we had from the government side of Bangladesh, we had the Ministry of Post and Telecommunications and ICT coming in, and we had international organizations. We had the Korean bilateral donor and also private sector coming in, and we picked an island out of the many islands in Bangladesh, and we started a project in Moshkali. And let me tell you what we did in the island, and that might kind of help you and give you more ideas. Can we go to the next slide? So before we went into the project, we discussed on how to approach this project. One of the reasons of doing this in a public-private partnership was because we wanted to bring in ideas and funds and commitments and expertise from all sectors. As you know, not one single stakeholder can do all of this. And combined, well, I think it will come out more profitable. And I think this project was that very case. So we considered many of the schemes, and in the end, we came up with the second model, which is in the middle. So we had the public sector coming in with the Bangladesh government, and we had the international organization. We had the private sector, so a Korean company from the private sector coming in. We had the local community coming in. So that would be the island of Moshkali, the regional government, and also the businesses inside the island, and also local communities from Bangladesh as well. And could we go to the next slide? And so how this played out was, so the local community, the benefits that each stakeholder would take would be for the local community, it will benefit the local population, of course, maybe overcome the geographical and political isolations and the digital divides. From a private sector point of view, I think there were some corporate social responsibility they could take on, the marketing opportunities and relationship building. And also from the public sector, there was maybe a paradigm shift from using actually the ICTs in villages. So maybe from a more hardware oriented to going into a effective and efficient ICT software, social development oriented project. Next slide, please. And the roles and responsibilities were also divided in that way. So each stakeholder had their expertise, and local community, of course, would support the project, the active involvement in making the project successful. They had all the fishermen, the local farmers, the regional governments, the fishing leaders, and other players coming in to support, which was also supported by the public sector. If you see on the right-hand side, right bottom side, to make sure that the project became sustainable, and the government also helped with the regulation of the policies and lending out some of the infrastructures that they had. And the private sector would bring in the expertise in actually laying out ICT infrastructures, ICT applications, passing on training and knowledge, and operation and maintenance of all those systems. And we had an international organization that was actually around this area near Cox's Bazar, and they had the actual team running the whole operation on site. Next page, please. So to begin with, actually, a needs assessment was made, which was conducted for a few months on the islands to see what the villagers would actually need. And some of the basic infrastructure issues were there. For example, the high-speed internet issues, the electricity issues, the limitations of ICT experts in the area, the awareness of using such ICT tools as well. And also there were needs to actually improve the existing services on education, health and agriculture and livelihood. Of course, being an island, Moshkali being an island, this was limited. So there were ways of using ICTs to solve some of those problems as well. And next page, please. And some of the main findings were to actually come up with tailored solutions for each issues that we wanted to handle on the project. And also one of the core issues on the second paragraph was actually to have for the fishing villages and the farmers to have access to the market. And we decided to actually use an e-commerce platform to do this, and also come up with a system to actually run this as well. And of course, lastly, the role of the government was very important to actually push this forward, and having the whole community being involved actively as well. Next page, please. So this is more of an overview of the project, of what was done. You can see on the picture. So this was done in 3 stages. You can see project 1, 2, and 3. And then, of course, actually now there is a project 4. So the 4th phase of the project, which will be done from this year till next year. It's brought in additional funding for this project. So in project 1, which is the first phase, actually the ICT infrastructures were actually built, connecting the island, the mainland with the island of Moshkali, using microwave towers, so that gigabit speed internet was actually provided. And based on the infrastructure, of course, the fiber optic cables were also laid out on the island. And because fiber optic cables are very expensive, a lot of the existing copper cables that were already in the island, that was operated by BTCL, the Bangladesh Telecommunication Company Limited, they were actually changed into a higher speed internet as well. And based on this infrastructure layout, if you see number 2, a lot of the solutions were actually, ICT solutions were placed in the health clinics on the island, the schools for e-education, and also e-education facilities and systems were built on top being applications. And thirdly, number three, the e-commerce platform was built, and also a community center was actually turned around into a center for education for IT, and also a storage room for the e-commerce as well. And the e-commerce platform actually used a local e-commerce company and started selling produce from the island to Dhaka. And also a logistics system was built in to follow up as well. So I mentioned the first phase of the project. This is what basically the infrastructure of the IT was built in, and this was divided into different stakeholders taking different parts. So if you see on the bottom picture, the nodes connecting from Moeshkali to Cox's Bazar node via TechNav. The installation was actually done by private sector on top of the pre-existing system that was already built there by BTCL. And then the private sector actually provided all the connections to the island, and the operation and maintenance was actually is now being done by the public sector, where the international organization and the government takes over, and also the local community helps with maintaining and operating the systems. And the e-commerce and livelihood part, so this is the third phase of the project. This e-commerce platform was actually originally made to actually generate more incomes for the farmers. So there were issues of middlemen being present on the island that took out some of the profits from the farmers. So this e-commerce site actually provided a direct link between the consumer and the seller, basically, and also provided a marketing space for the farmers. They would actually sell their produce to the capital city Dhaka in Bangladesh, and based on the price, place, promotion, and the product strategies, there were training and knowledge sharing programs that were already made as well. So some of the local e-commerce companies would be involved to provide training. The private sector would come in to provide training as well on how to better market their products, and also do the quality control of the whole product, because it had to be delivered from the island to the mainland as well. Next phase. And this is mostly the logistics of the project. So you can see that on the left-hand side, an online order would be placed by an online customer in Dhaka, and they would access this via an e-commerce company website that had a tag to the Moeshkali Island fish, salt, betel leaf produces that were made, and dried fish. And the order will be received, and the community center, which was turned into an e-business center, would actually receive the order, check for inventories at the farm. The local entrepreneurs were involved in collecting the produce from the farms, carry it via rickshaw, and then also storing it for quality control, packaging it, and also then sending it to one of the 3 warehouses that was placed in Dhaka, and delivered within 24 hours in sending the order as well. And could we go back to the previous slide? Sorry. And one important aspect, I think, is the monitoring and evaluation. So we just didn't finish with this. There was continuing monitoring being done. So one example is that originally we had only contacted one e-commerce company, and we found out that this company didn't have that much presence in the area. So we additionally contacted other bigger e-commerce companies in Dhaka, and then we ended up having them being involved in the project, so that the fishermen and the farmers could sell more of their produce to Dhaka as well. And also a lot of the advertisements were made so that people visiting the island would also buy the dried fish from the area before going back to their original homes. page, please. So that was one of the a project or comprehensive project that we carried out, and this is another maybe an ideation that I would like to mention using ICT. So maybe having an e-learning center or content studio, so that a lot of the manuals and the contents could be made and generated. You could also have an aquaculture training and experience center, a fishery product processing distribution center, and also this was mentioned by Joseph earlier, maybe a village PR center that FIPA also currently does in Korea. So maybe setting up websites to help advertise local catches to capital cities or larger cities as well, and trying to sell them and link them, linking the villages to the main consumers directly. And this is an example of an e-learning center for a fishing community, so that actual contents could be made. I think the regional and the central government can also pass on like educational programs via the systems. The local communities can make their own contents as well, so that they can spread it to other people. It doesn't have to be very high tech. I think it can be very, very low tech as well. And maybe people can access it through their mobile phones, since landline or a fixed internet isn't that much available in households. Next page, please. And this is an example of a smart classroom. And next page, I'll just go over this. And this is an example of a micro vessel monitoring system. So I know that large ships, for example, you have the global maritime distress signal systems that requires ships more than 300 tons to have VMS systems in their boats. But in rural villages and small villages, I think, who mostly use small wooden boats, I think this isn't really necessary. Once the fishermen take their wooden boats and go out to the sea, they can't really contact their families for a long period of time. And I think there is a way where you can actually attach these very small VMS systems on the wooden ships. It isn't required, but it can be. It's portable and it's rechargeable, and it normally goes through a lifetime of about 2 or 3 months before being recharged again, and it uses Inmarsat satellites to connect. And I think this can actually benefit fishermen to check their safety, and they can also check and send short SMS to their families to see if they are well or not, and also warn if there are any weather hazards going on around the area as well. The next page, please. I think is that. Oh yes, and the last page. So this is an example of an IoT sensor that can be used. So for example, in not only in Moshkali, but the coastal areas in Bangladesh that have lowlands, I think there are issues of the sea actually coming into the land and changing the salinity levels of crops in the fields, and having sensors placed in those fields to check for soil and seawater salinity levels. I think you can monitor and see how much crop yields you can actually get, because the salinity actually has a direct effect on low crop yields as well. So, or you could have crops that are more resistant to those salinity levels as well. And maybe through a very simple system, you can see on the page here, you can actually check and monitor and see and what to do, and maybe what to change or how to take this forward. Maybe having a different crop being introduced, or maybe actually just changing it to shrimp farming, or I think it kind of gives you many areas of expansion as well in ideation. So these are some of the examples I wanted to mention. I know some of them are very, very specific, but I think through these small ideas, I think you can build bigger projects and bigger programs. And I hope we can actually have more input and discussions on this as well in the future. Thank you very much.